Have a blessed and wonderful morning to each and everyone. So my name is Christina Ocampo and our group will be discussing about the fifth disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. So let us start our reporting with a quote from Phil Harding that an investment is not an investment if it destroys our planet. So let us keep our mind that we don't own the earth owns us. So let us help each other and invest for a better, greener earth. Good. So the contents of our reports are as follows. Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology of PHIVOLCS and the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration or PAG-ASA are in charge of the following. First, observation and monitoring network, which I'll be reporting later. Then 2 is technology development and application for monitoring. 3, modeling and simulation for improvement of monitoring and forecasting. Fourth is hazard, vulnerability, and risk assessment. Fifth is the warning and risk communication. 6 is technology development and application for climate change mitigation and adaptation. 7, technology development and application for disaster risk management policy. Research naman yung pinaka-last. So, let's start with the disaster risk reduction or DRR, analyzing has this 5 so analyzing, reducing, lessen, improving, and preparing. So analyzing and management excuse me, of their casual factors, reducing exposure to hazards, lessen the vulnerability of people and assets, improving management of the land and environment, preparing for the adverse events. So yun yung mga kanang work ni PAG-ASA o ni PHIVOLCS, no, for us to be monitored, no, as a community. So disasters are as old as mankind. The first description of disaster and its management comes from mythological the Noah and his ark. No? Similar flood tales are widespread in Greek mythology, Puranas, Mesopotamian stories, and many culture pa. So the etymology, ito yun. So originated from the Greek, dos means bad, aster means star. So the calamity due to position of a planet or a star. Then evolved in Italian as disastro. Then to become in French na disastre. And then karon sa ato ang time disaster, di ba? Nice kayo. Okay, so I'll start with this observation and monitoring network. From the word itself, observation, the action of observing something or someone carefully, or in order to gain information or a remark, statement, or comment based on something one has seen, heard, or noticed. Like, di ba, sa panahon karon, they need to monitor. And those people who are actually working for the government or PAG-ASA and PHIVOLCS, they have to be observant and they always monitor yung dapat. No? So, monitoring. Monitoring, observe, and check the progress or quality of something over a period of time. So, keep the under systematic review, like for example, no, they use the monitor, mga computers or mga high-tech na no, or an instrument or device used for observing, checking, or keeping a continuous record of a process or quantity. Example, ang PAG-ASA is monitoring bagyong Aurine right now, di ba? For us to be safe and para ma-aware po ta and be ready, no? Like ako, I'm from Malulag, so it's kind of scary if magbaha siya or magbaha sa utro, no? So we have to be alert, and thanks to PAG-ASA, they help us in observing and monitoring the networks, especially in monitoring climate change. And what should we do to help in our own way? So para na take part, no, to help them in our little own way. So far from being limited to climate change adaptation, such evolving frameworks are useful as well for all risks that change over the time. So for example, no, even for the earthquakes, the kahitabo, no, the changes in exposure, like for example, sa Vegas, dapat init lang. Ngano nag-snowman, something like that. Like karon sa Bukidnon, grabe ka kabugnaw, something like that. So, and then the ground deformation, the patterns of it, and then the retrofitting of the structures, and the slight damage after an event modify the behavior and vulnerability of the built environment. You know, so hence the framework such as this presented in your screen, no, are the potentially useful beyond the sole issue of climate change, and can be generalized to all types of risks that evolved due to the urbanization. Siyempre, like, yung bukid na to sa Cagayan, like yung bukid sa Cagayan de Oro, di ba? Before, like sa Indahag. But right now, there's a lot of cooking ng mga houses and like, very conigit siya ba? Urban na kayo siya. So, there's also a big factor of climate change. Kaya before, it's all mga ano lang, mga kahoy-kahoy nga makatapang for us na dili magbaha. But right now, daghan na kaayo mga housings. So ayun na nga. So like easing of building and infrastructures, just like what I've said a while ago, and changing in human intervention, which collectively can be grouped together within the concept of global change. Wait sa ha. Okay. So, yun, within the concept of global change. Lakas sa natin si Grabe. Hindi sila kasunod. So, pinag-careful lang pang itapas-pas na nag-report dito. Anyway, so, yung mga namin, wala din sila nakasunod. So, let's wait for Cassie. Ika naman ang next. But anyway, again, no, so, as you see in your screen, kanang duha ra gyud ang pinapanga, like the scientific knowledge, like sa risk management and adaptation, naamag yun ng tulo, no? Paulit-ulit yan. Like, for me, gina siya, always gina siya, like, assessing hard exposure, vulnerability, and decision-making schemes. Of course, panapod siya nga, we have to assess and select adaptation and risk management option. So again na naman, yung implementation and monitoring and evaluation. Of course, after man nato ma-assess, we have to implement it, then always monitor ta. Okay, so lastly, so since Jazz, are you there, Jazz? Jassy?
Yes, Steph.
Okay, so next naman, Jassy will report.
So next is the technology development and application for monitoring. So development of instruments and data processing and analysis systems, application of technologies for improved monitoring of weather, climate, geologic, and oceanographic processes. So first is the hydrometeorological and oceanographic instruments, the volcano, earthquake, tsunami, and landslide monitoring instruments, the instrument bed facilities. So number 4 is the radar data processing technologies. The radar data processing technologies, the remote sensing, airborne space technologies, and the data assimilation system for in situ and remotely sensed data. Next. So the hydrometeorological instrument. So first is the maximum and minimum thermometer, which indicates the lowest and highest temperature between two stations. The soil thermometer, which is used to measure the soil temperature. The psychrometer, it is used to measure humidity at hydrometeorological station. The wind vanes and anemometer, used to measure wind velocity. So this velocity is measured by wind vanes and the anemometer. Next is the evaporimeter. So these are instruments used to measure evaporation, like water that escapes from land and water bodies into the atmosphere. So next is Lapatonoman rain gauge. This is to the, the 14th barometer. This is to measure the pressure exerted by the atmosphere. It consists of inverted U-tube filled with mercury kept in a cistern, and it is also measured by an aneroid barometer. Next is the pyranometer and radiometer. So this is used to measure the radiation. Shortwave solar radiation, both direct and diffuse, reaching the Earth's surface. Then lastly is the sunshine recorder, an instrument used to measure the bright sunshine in a day. So next is the oceanographic instruments. So we have the depth and bathymetry, the echo sounding or sonar. Sonar meaning sound navigation and ranging. Use of sound to determine depth and seafloor profile. And we also have the sounding, which is the use of rope and weight to find the depths of the ocean floor. The echo sounder or the bathymeter, which transmits and receives sound waves that are reflected off of the ocean floor and submarine objects. So it can sense depth of the ocean, schools of fish, shipwrecks, mudslides, and sea for features. We also have the underwater equipment, the scuba, the self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, which is invented by a documentarian. And next is the atmospheric diving suits, used for deep dives, maintains atmospheric pressure so the compression is not needed. We also have the research vessels, the Glomar Challenger drilling vessels that collected ocean floor samples used to prove seafloor spreading and plate tectonics. We also have the JOIDS Resolution, which is deep sea drilling vessel used today. So next is the